Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back here to today's edition of Intuitive Angling, and really appreciate you guys joining me for today's video, and hope all the locusts and tree frogs and stuff aren't too loud tonight. They're pretty vocal right now. But anyway, guys, I've been wanting to do this video for a long time, and I want to talk about some stuff that happened at FLW over the last 20 years that the public needs to know about. There's some stuff there. There's a lot of injustices that happened that I want to bring to light here, and maybe by shedding some light on this particular issue, some of the anglers that were shortchanged during this entire time, maybe you'll get the recognition they truly deserve. So this is a lot to unpack in this video we're going to get into, and I'll be curious to get your guys' feedback as well. Also, guys, big thank you out there. Everybody's taking time to hit that subscribe button here at Intuitive Angling. Man, we've had some really incredible channel growth over the past 6 months. Thank you very much. If you haven't become a channel subscriber, I'd like to invite everybody to do so. It's free and easy. And also, guys, thank you very much for everybody that continues to support Intuitive Angling by using all the links I put in the description. All you dudes that, get your tackle through my tackle warehouse link in the description of the videos, you guys are why this channel's on YouTube. So if you like the content, really appreciate that. Okay, let's get into this. First of all, let's start out. I started fishing FLW in 1998, and I was fishing the Bassmaster Top 150 tournaments full time too. So I was one of the double pros. There was about probably a dozen of us, guys like myself and Clark Winlet and Dion Hibden and people like that were fishing both circuits, the Top 150s and the FLW Tour. FLW Tour started in 97, and I started in 98. And before I get into this, I want to say right off the bat, in light of everything that's happened with FLW and it's now MLF, I think that in the bigger picture, the creation of the FLW Tour was not a good thing for the sport. It segmented the sport, it divided the sport, it created a very confusing scenario where nobody really knew what a professional angler was. Prior to FLW, was the Redman tournament circuit, and you had the Redman circuits, which were now the BFL. That's what they did, and they were super successful. They had a very important place within the industry. But when Erwin Jacobs bought the organization out and formed the FLW Tour, it was a bad thing for the sport in retrospect, looking back now. Given that, what happened is FLW, during a period of about 1998 to about 2005 or something like that, they were at the top of the game. They were outpacing Bassmaster in every way because they had a title sponsorship with Walmart and the National Guard they were just throwing money at the FLW Tour, and it was we had a bunch of us, including myself, had sponsor team deals. It was a very lucrative time to be a pro. Big sponsorships, easy to get sponsors, huge payouts, low entry fees. So from that standpoint, there was about a 5 to maybe at the most 10-year period where FLW was the place to be. And then eventually what happened with that is once Walmart started pulling out and they started losing a lot of their sponsorships, the organization really deteriorated rapidly. It lost, the money wasn't there, the sponsor team deals went away, everything went down the tube, and eventually it was bought out, which is now MLF. But here's what I want to talk about is how the anglers that fish the FLW Tour have gotten shortchanged in light of the fact of the unbelievable talent they were. Now, I'm one of the few people, guys, that are qualified to say what I'm getting ready to say because I fished both. At the time, again, I was fishing the Bassmaster Top 150 circuit and the FLW Tour full time. And I can tell you right now, because I competed against both groups of anglers, the competition and the level of competition on the FLW Tour during that time frame was far greater than Bassmaster. Just the talent depth was so much deeper, and it was tougher to compete. There were freaking hammers on the FLW Tour. Some of them were fishing bass, but there was a lot of them that were just strictly FLW. Guys like Andy Morgan, Dan Moorhead, Scott Suggs, Clark Winlet eventually, switched over to that. David Dudley, which was the all-time money winner. these guys were unbelievable how good they were. And they made a ton of money. They made millions of dollars fishing the FLW Tour. And, like Andy Morgan won multiple Angler of the Years. Scott Martin, Forest Wood Cup champion. Scott Martin had an unbelievable career with FLW. Didn't fish Bassmaster. So you got about probably 15 or 20 pros that fished the FLW circuit that were the best anglers in the world, for sure, in my opinion. And they never got the notoriety. And now what you see is manifested specifically like in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And I've been critical of the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame a little bit because I simply don't think I know, not simply, they have not been fair to the FLW Tour anglers. If you look at the people that have been inducted in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, it's mainly Bassmaster guys. And if you compare stats, if you take like Andy Morgan's stats, Scott Martin's stats, David Dudley's stats, all the guys out there that won millions of dollars with FLW that are not in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame, and I could go down the list. Scott Suggs won $1 million, Dan Moorhead, tons of money, bunch of hammers on the FLW Tour. None of them are in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And if you stack up the statistical, information like tournament wins, money winning, Angler of the Years, they're not in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And they were competing on the most difficult circuit on the planet at the time. And you've got guys that have been inducted in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame that just fish nothing but Bassmaster that have half of the credentials of these guys that fish the FLW Tour. And on top of that, during that time frame, the industry as a whole did not embrace these dudes. It's like the industry as a whole, as far as sponsorships at the time, unless you had a team deal with FLW, they put all their money in the Bassmaster pros, even though the marquee anglers were with FLW. As somebody that fished both, I didn't, I had a little bit of best of the both worlds at the time, fishing both circuits. But I feel terrible for those guys. I feel terrible for Andy Morgan. I feel terrible for, David Dudley, for Scott Martin, Scott Suggs, Dion Hibden. The list, I could just go down the list with it about these guys that were just freaking studs at FLW that never got the notoriety they deserved. And I think a lot of people at the time, they simply thought FLW was just like some AAA circuit, like, something that guys just fished that weren't good enough to fish for bass. That's the biggest bunch of crap in the world, guys. They were better than the Bassmaster Top 150 pros overall if you go down the field of them. So, main thing that I want to do, I just wish the industry and the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame would start recognizing the accomplishments of these anglers, because any one of those guys, if you put Andy Morgan and Scott Martin, David Dudley, and they did nothing but fish Bassmaster, for that 10-year period, and they focused all their energy on them, they would be like Kevin Van Dam type statistical stuff. But they, like I said, they just never got the notoriety for it. It's probably the biggest injustice that is in fishing that nobody talks about. So I don't know, maybe bringing light, maybe just a video will help bring some light on that, but I don't know what's going to have to take place for that to change, for these people to finally get the recognition that they deserve. But a lot of that responsibility lies on the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame. And they have got to start examining, people that fish the FLW Tour and compare them to the dudes that they are putting in the Bass Fishing Hall of Fame every year now. And it doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. You can't discriminate against performance simply because the organization was not, in line with whatever your agenda was or whatever you thought was a true sport. But it's a tough deal because, like I said in the beginning, I really think that in the big picture that the formation of the FLW Tour has been a negative thing for the sport. I still think that the Bass Pro Tour is a negative thing to the sport. I think one of the biggest things that has held this sport back as far as terms of public image on a very broad global scale was the fact that we've got too many conflicting circuits. You don't have conflicting circuits with Major League Baseball or the Pro Bowlers Tour or the NBA or the NFL, that everybody knows what the professional leagues are, and there's only one of them. You don't have that in bass fishing. It's like, and like I said, we've never had an organization, or we've never had, a governing agency that, can regulate that type of stuff. But anyway, guys, I just wanted to throw that out there, and I'm not sure if you've been aware of that. Let me know what you guys think about it, and we'll check in later. See you.